Hello and welcome to the Kreel Manor playthrough overview video. So what you're seeing here is the setup of the game for a Wolf of the North character who's basically the warrior. So at the start of a round, this is your gameplay area will look something like this, and what's going to happen is one of these threats is going to come out of the shadows down into our threat area, which means we have to then deal with it. So here we have a goblin mudrunner. And when we do that, we're going to push all these threats along and they're going to fill up. So the shadows is another new area you can interact with. So anyway, here we have a goblin mudrunner and he has 2 fight and 4 influence. Now, if we look at our abilities here, we have 1 fight and 2 influence. So we're a way off being able to tackle him at the moment. But there are a number of ways we can try and overcome him. Another option we can use is to use a card. Instead of attacking a threat and trying to do damage to it, we can use an action in the same way by tiring it to draw a skill from our skill deck. Or we can tilt an action, which just means you turn it ever so slightly and stick a power token on there. And that means you can't use the action this round, but next turn when we use it, we'll be able to rotate it completely and spend this power token to add to our existing power in that ability. So you can tilt, you can use them to draw, or you can use them to deal with threats. And there are other cards and abilities in here that will help you deal with threats as well. So if we use this longsword to give ourselves a fight token here, we've now got 2 fight. The goblin's only got 2 fight. So if we use this ability, spend a power token, that gives us 2 power, we will defeat this goblin. And his special ability is when he's defeated, remove him from the game. And we can still tilt one of these to power it up. So let's go ahead and give our influence 1 power token. And that's it. So we've done 1 action, 1 tilt. We've used our longsword. So we're going to pop a token on there to show it's got 2 uses. We've got 1 left for the rest of the scenario. And then we're going to simply reset and go again. And it's a new round. So the next threat is going to emerge from the shadows. And here we have a living corpse. So this guy's a little trickier to deal with. He has 5 influence and 5 fight, so we're not anywhere near tackling this dude at the moment. The living corpse here has a fell stench ability, so when he's played we lose 2 spirit. If our spirit ever gets to 0, we are wounded, which means we lose the scenario. So in Veilwraith you would have lost a silver ribbon. In Kreel Manor you'll take a wound card. So for example, if he'd taken our last spirit and defeated us, we would draw one of these, and here we have a splintered arm. We can only carry 1 hand asset. So if we'd had another hand asset here, we'd have had to drop it. And if you get too many wounds, you will lose the campaign. As we are searching through all these threats, what we're looking for is plot cards. So at the end of each round, we're going to draw a new threat. And here we have our first plot card. So it has a number of ways to interact with it. If we do defeat it, we get to choose how we interact with it, whether we're going to, this is a haunted statue, for example. We can choose to purify, smash, or pray at this haunted statue. Our choice is going to have an impact, so we're going to draw a story card, which would then be potentially shuffled into the next scenario, but it will have ongoing repercussions that we need to deal with. So to complete a scenario, we need to defeat 5 of these objectives. And each time we defeat one, we're going to gain a little level up. It could be a new skill, it could be an asset that we can add. So here we've got a leather buckler, which will give us a new ability. We can have that in our other hand. When we defeat all 5 objectives, there's going to be a foe that we have to defeat as well, or a number of foes, which will be unique to each scenario. Here we have a werewolf, for example, and we're going to have to defeat that in order to win the scenario and move on to the next one. And obviously the scenarios will step up in difficulty each time. And so that's a quick overview. So obviously it plays very simply. You're drawing a threat, you're drawing a skill, then you're interacting with them, you're powering up one of your actions every round, you're exploring locations as you go. So not only are you interacting with threats, you'll be trying to sneak and explore these different locations by putting damage tokens on here, and if you reach the explore value of a location, you defeat that and move on to the next one, which might have a different effect as well. So there's loads of ways to interact with it. And we also have story cards. So each character has their own story as they go into Kreel Manor. The Wolf of the North, for example, is looking for their friend Warsig, who disappeared into Kreel Manor. So over the course of the game, you'll be looking to try and find him and rescue him. That might be freeing him from a cell or discovering his weapons. It might even be enlisting him in a final battle against certain foes. So each character has their own story path that they'll be travelling whilst they're overcoming these threats, looking for objectives and fighting against the foe. There are playthroughs of Veilwraith, the full game. There's loads of playthroughs of Veilwraith on the Kickstarter page itself. So that's the game in a nutshell. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you on the Kickstarter page.